Hey there, comic book fans. I'm John Anderson, and I just watched episode 11 of The Flash, and it's pretty damn good. Now, there's definitely a lot of setup for the rest of the season, so keep in mind I'm going to be going through some key plot points from the episode. So if you haven't watched it yet, here is your spoiler warning. And there it goes. So the first thing that really stood out to me about this episode was Harrison Wells and Cisco making the Vibe glasses, which was really cool because in the comics that's like the essential part of Vibe's costume. And I really like how they're slowly transforming Cisco into Vibe. It's not just like, oh, he has powers, there you go. He's slowly learning what it takes to be Vibe because his powers are so complex because he could be kind of like this Oracle-esque character where he'll know the future and the past and all this stuff. So I like how he slowly learns how powerful he can be, and I can't wait to see what they do with him in the future. Next, we have the Patty and Barry relationship finally coming to a close. The episode starts with the two of them kind of interacting, and I'm like, oh, when's she going to bring up that she knows he's the Flash? Because in my previous video, I was like, oh, she definitely knows he's the Flash. She's got to know by now. And then that scene ends, and I'm like, I don't think she knows he's the Flash yet. And I was like, come on, Patty. Like, there's a line in the middle of this episode when she finally does figure it out. She's like talking to Joe, and she's like, I'm looking through these files, and none of this adds up. What'd you think? Like, I'm this detective, and you didn't think I'd be able to figure out he was the Flash? And I was like, come on, Patty. Like, you should have figured that out after your interactions with him last episode, because it was super clear to me. How it wasn't clear to a detective, I don't know. But regardless, it's kind of nitpicky because that's such like small, minute little detail, because what happens next is you have two very powerful scenes with these two characters, and it's probably my favorite part. Well, no, we'll get to my favorite part of this episode. But we have one scene where Patty confronts Barry, and she's like, hey, I know you're the Flash. Just tell me you're the Flash, and I'll stay here and we'll work it out. I won't go to Midway City, and I won't become a CSI. In this scene, it's so pivotal because you have Barry and Patty who both want to be together, but they both also have two other wants that just can't work. Because you have Patty who wants to be CIS, and that in a normal relationship that would kind of crumble with these two different worlds. But you have Barry being this like surrogate that he can't be with her because if somebody finds out about her, they'll kill her, and it's one more person to stress about. Kind of like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1, where Peter Parker's kind of just walking away from Mary Jane and says like, I can't be with you because he's a superhero. And Barry's having that same dilemma. That moment when she's like, I'll stay, is the turning point for Barry. Barry's like, listen, I'm not the Flash, and she storms off and she leaves. But I really like how the last scene kind of ends. It's very clever that Patty calls him and says there's an incident on the train, please get here as fast as you can. Comes as the Flash, and it kind of confirms to her that he is the Flash, and they both kind of have this closure moment on the train that's like, hey, I'm sorry. And it's very touching. But the thing about it is I don't think we're going to see Patty for the rest of this season, but there's obviously potential for her to come back in season 3. Speaking of people coming back, Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne, coming back to kill Barry Allen, just like in season 1. And they address it right off the bat. It's like, how the hell is he back? And it's a lot of confusing time travel-ness, but this is the first time Eobard Thawne is time traveling, so he hasn't gone back in time to kill Barry's mother yet. So that's how he kind of makes his way here. And it's a little confusing. I'm still trying to like fully understand it, but that's time travel for you. It can get very convoluted very quickly. So he's back, and it's kind of, no pun intended, the reverse, where in season 1 Barry was inexperienced, and I think this is the first time Eobard Thawne travels back in time to defeat Barry, and that's why Barry is so much more experienced and able to take him down so quickly. Because what we see a lot in all these different TV shows is the super villain fatigue. Like in Arrow season 3, you had Slade coming back for like one episode, and they kind of take care of him, and that's it. We don't see him. where you had him as the main villain in season 2, who took you like half a season to take him down and only took you one episode to beat him. Like, that's kind of lame. But what I like about this instance, because clearly it's the same instance, it's a one-off, like, hey, remember that guy from last season? Here he is again. But we're going to wrap everything up nicely for the end of the episode. But there's a lot of promise of, like, he'll be back, because they'll definitely do this again. Again, I don't think he'll come back in season 2, because they got some other things to get to, but he'll definitely be back for season 3, maybe in a bigger role. But only time will tell how his role will play out in the future. Now, the last thing that really stood out to me was Jake Eric's doppelganger from Earth 1. It's not Jake Eric, it's Hunter Zolomon. Now, when that name was dropped, my mind was blown. Because for those of you that don't know, in the comics, Hunter Zolomon is Professor Zoom, the second Reverse Flash after Edo Thawne. And I'm like, that's it. That's who Zoom is. He's Jake Eric from Earth 1, who went to Earth 2 to defeat his doppelganger, and now he's looking to defeat Barry, because he's the next Flash in line. Now, it's kind of confusing because in the comics, he's more of a Wally West Flash villain, but who knows? Maybe he will play a role in this series with Wally West, because we have no hint that Wally has any Speed Force in him at all. I'm kind of curious to see when they're going to introduce him. Kind of like Cisco, I'm not dying to find out how Wally West becomes the Flash, because I think I like that to progress slowly, because we have him kind of like trying to be part of the West family, and he kind of rejected it, but now he kind of does want to be a part of their family again. So he needs time to develop. So I'm not rushing for Wally West to become a Flash yet. But with that name drop, we know either he's definitely Zoom, and that's all my money is going on that, or it's a misdirect, and they want me to think it's Zoom. Kind of how they're like, oh, Felicity's dead. Oh no, she's in the grave. And that was an intentional misdirect. So if that might be the case with this, that they go, oh, by the way, you thought that this was the guy? Oh, this is actually Zoom. And I'll be like, damn, they got me. But for now, I will be so satisfied if Hunter Zolomon is Zoom, because it would make perfect sense. I never saw it coming, like the way it was setting up. Because we all assumed it was somebody that we knew. And it still might be. But if it's him, yes. I am so excited for the rest of the season. So that's my thoughts on episode 11. If you guys like this video, be sure to share and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook at John Ryan Anderson, or on Instagram at GodStageFright. And remember, guys, as always, comics do deserve a second look.